Hi.
You have to get into the camera more if you want to say hi.
Hey, what's
Hi.
up? Peace.
Peace.
This is one of the first installments of a new sequence that I'm going to be doing for people who love art and creativity. We're going to call this Words of Art and Abstract. I'm your host, Aseer the Duke of Tears, as well as the artist.
Remember Bob Moss?
Yeah, big up to Bob Ross. He was one of the first people who I used to watch all the time. A great melanated brother, very peaceful spirit. Unfortunately, the industry drove him crazy, and he wound up committing suicide allegedly. But
Is this okay?
yeah, I'm gonna patch that up.
Okay.
So in that, thank you again to my queen, C10K, for setting it up and encouraging us to do other things as well, because we need to do that.
And if I love watching you paint, I always think whenever you start painting, you start talking amazingness in history. So it's like, why not share it with the rest of the
Why
world?
not do both, right?
Somewhat feel
So we're gonna try to get it
too
in.
special.
So we're gonna try to get it in before it rains a little overcast.
So if it
But,
does, just give me a call. I have to make some stuff and
cool.
I'll be down. Amor,
Okay.
you alright?
Excuse me, homie. Can you sit over here? So basically, what's going down? I've been a fine artist for a number of years. I've exhibited in galleries in Japan, in New York, Los Angeles, a couple of places, and I really loved it. The issue with it, though, is that I don't think I could go as far as I could have, only due to the fact that, you know, that whole industry, unfortunately, is
The whole Rush Gallery
that
arts
whole
industry.
Rush art gallery industry. It's a lot of politics, it's a lot of homosexuality, and all of that, and I'm not down with all that. So, what I am going to do today is kind of show you.
What? You're not down with
I'm not down with the Bati Boy business and the integral politics of what you got to do to sometimes be known for what it is you're good at.
But we're not anti-gays.
I'm not anti anybody that's not anti-me.
But you know, if you don't make things specific, people want to turn your words into what it is. No.
Yeah, well, they could do that whatever they want. I didn't want to have to compromise myself sexually to move ahead, and I had a gallery director tell me that. So that's when I knew that industry, that there was only so much far I was going to go in that. So being that as a fine artist and as a painter, I wanted to use this as a means to kind of like show different dynamic aspects of the fact that we as melanated, Asiatic, Moorish, or whatever people you want to call Tonkin people, we have a variety of different talents and things that we can do to convey the message and bang on the devil in many different ways. This is a piece. No, this is a piece that I did a long time ago, called The Truth. And this was one of my favorite pieces. This was the piece that I actually discovered what type of style that I was going to paint in. Now, I do comic books and stuff like that. I like to draw those as well. And thank you, buddy. And in the process of that, I wanted to, again, start to show that there's a lot of different ways to accomplish the things that we want. Excuse me, some stuff on it. I like to work in oil. I also like to work in watercolor and acrylic when it comes to comic books and stuff. But specifically, right now, I was commissioned to do a piece that is going through a bunch of different changes. So one thing about art is it's a medium by which everybody has the means to...
Ooh, and it's creative.
Yes. Everybody has the means to produce things that they like. Yes, you can squeeze these out right here. All right? But don't juke them together. And when you're done, put the tops back on. Okay, so basically, like I said, what this is a piece that's kind of like becoming something, you know? The person who commissioned me to do it was like, well, I don't know what I want, so just do something dealing with original women, or what we'll say is so-called original black women, or I always like to say Asiatic women. So whenever I think of the Asiatic original woman, I think of the goddess and the mother of civilization. So what I wanted to do was showcase and create a patterned idea of expression, again, through art, in terms of my veneration towards our sisters. Whether or not they're in their right mind or not, inshallah, we'll all get there, or they will get there in time. But until then, we got to show that we still love and respect the fact that our people, and the fact that we all came out of an original woman. Um,
I'm just
as a
gonna open first.
as a Moor, no, this is watercolor. I can't use this. I can only use oil. For the ones that say oil. Watercolors is cool, but we're not gonna use those right now. 1 second, guys. These are the ones that say oil. See?
Oil.
Yeah. So based on that, I wanted to get into the science of art. Now, one of the lies that was told to us by the colonial powers was that Moors specifically made laws or whatever that prohibited them from painting graven images of themselves or whatever. You got to kind of be quiet on that. But that's not true. Moors, like anybody else, were very artistic. There was a Moor in history named Juan de Pareja. He actually was a Morisco, meaning that he was a Moor who was redesignated after the Reconquista in Spain in 1492, and he actually was the teacher. That's fine. He actually was the teacher of a guy that we know in history known as Michelangelo, the painter of the Sistine Chapel. So what's happening now is I'm going to get into an aspect of how that works. We as Moors, we as original people, Asiatics, have a tendency to sometimes look at the forest for the trees and not see everything for what they are. What I like to do in art is challenge myself in terms of different directions as to how things incarnate. One of the best things about art is that the expression of it is a manifestation of the creator itself, because the creator is based on creation. So anybody then that does create in the manner of love, truth, peace, freedom, justice, and equality basically puts themselves in a meditative state that they can bring forth essences out of themselves that they may not have known existed. So what I'm doing basically is kind of like freeballing this, because I don't have any specific way, and being that I was given free reign to create, I basically just allow my mind to do what it wants to do. Usually what I do is kind of define what I want to do with a sketch first. However, different types of art has different types of mediumship in terms of the expression. It's blue, right? Or black. That's black.
That's blue. That's like red. And that's black.
Okay.
That's yellow. That's blue. That's green. That's blue.
The beauty of expression is the fact that expression is limitless based upon your own individual identity. You know what I'm saying? What you perceive expression to be is what it is for you as an individual.
Right.
Yes, with some white. That's because it's busting in the sock. I mean, it's on the side. Okay, now just chill right now. Just let me do it, okay? I need to talk in the camera. So what I'm doing basically is kind of just allowing myself to bring about a certain degree of clarity that I don't even know where it'll go. Art itself is an expression of the soul manifested into physical form. And as they say that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, what we behold, whether we like it or not, usually is art. Art is something that cannot be regaled just to one form of specific type of expression, because expression is individual to everybody. Therefore, all art is not equal. I may look at something and you may see it and you may not like it. But I may look at it and be like, oh, that's dope. There's something this in it, there's that in it. And due to that, we have a means of allowing ourselves to push ourselves further in context. You know what I mean? Whether we want to purchase art, whether we understand what art is to us as individuals, also in the expressive manifestation of that. So again, as Moors, if you look at structures like the Alhambra, which there was a point in the Alhambra where it was so pristine that the Moors actually created a whole form of architecture called molding. or grandiose architecture they refer to as the moldings now that you see in different buildings. And these moldings, they actually made them out of walnuts and eggshells and walnut shells and things like that. Everything that was used in the creation of the Alhambra. That's why it was so beautiful. That's why in regards to how savage the Morisco conquistadors and them was, they didn't want to necessarily destroy that. They just wanted to own it. You know? Same thing here in America when you deal with like the mounds. You have people, the so-called, what we call the people we call the mound builders. These are people who had an extraordinary sense, I don't need that, had an extraordinary sense of artistic design to create a mound structure that allowed them to compose themselves and compose mounds out of the earth itself. You understand? Ain't no European do that. Excuse me. I don't say, see, when we say European, in the mind of the modern so-called citizen of the United States, they believe that automatically means a Caucasian person, but that's not true. A European is anyone from the island of Europa, meaning that if I was an Asiatic born in Europe right now, then I would be a European. So we cannot necessarily give that power to a class of people who really aren't even from Europe either. White folk know that they not indigenous to Europe. They were brought there. You understand? Just like you had elements of people who were brought over here. But just because you brought somewhere don't mean that you're from somewhere. But what has happened in this country is that those who have been naturalized have more access to direct benefits and stuff like that than those who are actually nationals of the country. Being a national means that you descend from the people who actually set the country up in the first place. Being a naturalized citizen means that you are here to basically work in the country that came after the fall of the Old Dominion. Now, like I said, I'm just freeballing this because I don't have any, based on a commission, I don't have any necessary, thank you, King. I don't have any necessary way to do it. All he said was that he wanted to be a goddess. So this is my show right now, but you can sit here and watch it with me, but you can't always try to take the attention, all right? My son is a great painter as well, but in this thing, to keep the consistency of what we're striving to do, I just want to keep my train of thought. And sometimes he requires me to explain things overly that he already knows the answer to. So everybody on Facebook knows about the Moors and everything because a lot of us have seen a lot of these so-called Orientalist pictures that were put up that depict Moors in many different kingdoms and structures and stuff like that, which is dope. But many people don't know the history of that period in time in which those pictures were painted and who was painting those pictures. There was people, no, not me. There was that whole class of pictures where you see Moors in regalia, in old Morocco, in the Kingdom of Morocco and stuff over there, whatever, or images of Moors in the Maghreb. Those Moors, or that type of painting of Moors, is called Orientalism. I told you. Okay? If you ask me again, you're going to have to fill out everything. Alright? You can sit here and watch me. So, essentially, those Moors of the Orientalist, or those painters of the Orientalist period, were all French, mostly French and Swedish. There was Ludwig, there was Gustav, there was Jerome, there was Sherrod, there was Cherot, there was a lot of them. My favorite of them all was Jerome. Jerome was very good because I liked the way that he classified and showed people in the habit in the kingdom. You know, essentially, those were commissioned by the Egypt, or I would say the Orientalist or Egypt Museum, that was first created by Napoleon. Museums, or what we consider museums, were created under the reign of Napoleon Bonaparte, who himself was a Corsican, which means he basically was a Moor or Morisco. Do your thing, fam. So based on that, he commissioned that when the French took over, when the French occupied the kingdom of Morocco over there, they never occupied us over here. When they occupied the kingdom of Morocco, what began to happen was they needed to get an accurate depiction of who were the remnants or the people in the kingdom. So they wanted to get a fresh idea and try to understand the intricacies that of so-called Moorish or Moroccan life that was now being conveyed to the so-called Moroccan government through the French. So they wanted to get accurate depictions of Moors in their habits, so that way they knew how some of the subtleties and inconsistencies, or what they perceived as inconsistencies of the culture. So they commissioned a lot of these people to go and occupy, you know what I'm saying? And to paint everyday pictures of Moors in everyday life. And so Jerome, like I said, was one of the ones who actually had a deep veneration of the Moorish Empire that was now being conducted through the so-called government of Morocco over there. Now, this had nothing to do with the autochthonous Moors of the Maghreb, or who lived in the lands of what they call Bled el Siba, which means, or what they call the lands of Bled el Meccan, which means the lands outside the boundaries of the Sultan's dominion. So you had those Moors that were in the Sultan's dominion, and you had those Moors that were outside of the Sultan's dominion. Those of us from the Maghreb, which means the farthest Morocco, the farthest west, we were always outside the Sultan's jurisdiction because we were part of his family. So based on that, like I said, Jerome had a good idea in terms of how he wanted to depict us, and became very fascinated in how the Moors related to each other, especially those Moors who stayed in habit, as they were very different in demeanor from a lot of the other people who were claiming quote-unquote Muslim. You know what I mean? So based on that, he was able to go to a lot of different places that a lot of Moors were not, a lot of other Orientalist painters that came after him weren't able to go. And there's a rumor that he actually converted to Islam, you know what I'm saying? Based upon his great understanding of how deep Moorish culture or Moroccan culture really was or is. And based on that, like I said, he did fantastic works. One of the most notable pictures or paintings of Moors was the classical piece called The Moorish Chief, in which you see the Moor enthroned, standing in front of an ancient temple or whatever, robed in white, looking just like Obatala. Most of the Orisha images that you see in different, you alright? Yeah. Most of the Moorish images that you see, especially images of the Orishas and stuff like that, you will see that a lot of them are dressed as Moors in Moorish habit, like Obatala. He wears a turban. I've seen an image of Obatala in a fez. I've seen images of Obatala in a lot of different ways, you know what I'm saying? And that's dope. But again, we don't see it like that. Same thing with images of like Shango Macho, you know what I mean? Who became the standard image of what we call Little Black Sambo. Look at an image of Shango Macho and look at the image of the so-called Black Sambo. Sambo, even, that name or that person that they refer to or whatever Sambo, that is actually a god. Shango Macho. Actually, what was I going to say? Actually, the image, again, of him is a manifestation, again, of us, because when we die, we become gods in the afterlife, when we go back to the mind of Allah. So, like I said, art has always been a deep part of our culture. And the arts and sciences and humanities was given to the so-called Neanderthal troglodyte to give him a form of civilization. As they say, music soothes the savage beast. And there was nobody more savage on the planet than the so-called Caucasoids that was running through the world between 1492 and 1776. Just like there's nobody more savage right now than the police that's out here murdering and killing black people every chance they get. They've almost turned that into an art. You know what I'm saying? And regardless to how much people don't like it, the powers that be are not going to do anything to really crack down and stop these people. Why? I use Daler Rowney, just so you know, I use Daler Rowney low odor thinner, because what thinner does is it helps break up the paint. Because when you use oil paint, you want to use oil paint with a good high pigment value. The pigment value in the paint is what brings out the robustness of the color, because the pigment represents the melanin in the actual paint. You know what I'm saying? So I thought I had more white, so I'm kind of bugging. But essentially it just kind of busts down to that. Thank you, babe.
Packaging lotion, I might as well use the rest of it on you.
Big up www.cordobaorganics.com. She's giving me some of that good healing lotion that's getting rid of people's, you know, eczema and psoriasis and all types of stuff that goes down. Thank you, baby. See, fellas, that's why you need a good woman in your life, because they make sure that you stay as robust as possible. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, with all of that being said, it created a situation in life in which people began to see how everything could be redistributed. Thank you.
All right, keep talking. I'm just
Be distributed in terms of the actual nuances of how the art has been distributed. So we created art as a means to express another form of Allah's guidance and love for us in the creative vessel. So we as people, though, can get sometimes, especially me, I can get a little bit too cerebral sometimes. And what that does is it creates a situation in me where I don't feel that I'm exhibiting what my full range of capacity, due to the fact that a lot of moral science is very, especially nowadays, has become very defensive. Meaning that a lot of people get into moral science and stuff like that because they want to. A lot of people get into moral science and stuff like that because they want to get out of something. I never got into moral science or anything like that to get out of any specific situation other than the Negro black colored chattel slavery thing and the 14th Amendment Dred Scott thing. That's the only thing I wanted out of, which I think everybody should opt out of if they can, but that's just me. Hold up, let me get this straight real quick and I'm gonna come right back to you. Now, when I first started doing art, and I was looking at a lot of those Orientalist paintings and stuff, there's a part of me that wanted to learn how to do things in a more realistic art fashion. Meaning, I wanted all of my paintings to look like real people, like, you know what I mean, like what they call realism, or what they call proto-realism.
What's that?
Excuse me, white paint. However, I found that, at least in my journey, that a lot of it that I wanted to do, that just wasn't my style. You know what I mean? And in it not being my direct style like that, I was trying to force myself to paint in a certain way, the way that a lot of our people will do, that a lot of our people will do when they feel that, you know what I mean, they want to have a certain effect on what they're doing, but they don't necessarily know how they're going to do it. So I would work and work and work to do that. I don't need the table.
No, I'm going to put out a floor.
I don't need the table. You know? And so I used to really, you know, beat myself up with that to a degree, because there's a part of me that really loves realism. You know what I'm saying? But once I let myself go and got over the fact that maybe that's not my way of doing things, a lot of stuff opened up. And that's when I started to discover that the way that I paint was a lot different than the way other people paint. Now, anyone who does paint would know that the minute somebody says that they like the way that your painting looks, there's a part of you that will indelibly change it. Like in my first quote-unquote marriage, I was in a polygamous marriage with 2 women. And I used to have art shows. That's why I was doing art shows and stuff like that, crazy. But what started to happen was, because we were in situations where I would have to be commissioned and I would do pieces and stuff, and then, you know, I would do it or whatever. I used to have a lot of people around me at that time. And sometimes when you have too many people around you, as they say, too many chefs spoil the soup, it got to a point where I started to take into account too much of what other people liked about what I was doing and not enough about what I wanted to do or what I wanted to paint for myself. And so that used to bring a lot of conflict, because at the time I was with a Scorpio. So, you know, Scorpios can be very demanding when they, you know, very creative, but they could also be very demanding when they feel that you're not doing stuff that they want you to do. And so back then I was a lot more, into having, you know, people around creatively that I felt, you know, were adding on in a manner that was going to bring more out of me. So I would look at certain aspects of stuff they were saying and say, you know what, I could do it more like this, do it more like that. Don't ever do that. Don't ever do that. Because what that does is it dulls the aspect of you that is creative, because now you're not creating for you. You're creating to appease an idea of somebody else. You know what I'm saying? And when that happened, I started to see that this person, especially her, was actually jealous of the fact that I did know how to create and do certain things. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times we as people will sometimes hook up with people that we think is there to support us, when really we actually choose them to inhibit our growth. Because there may be an element of us that's scared to push ourselves beyond the boundaries of what we may think that we can do. And there are some people who are, especially this chick, who will be more than happy to shit on what you do or how you do it, because there's an element of them that feels that they should be doing it, you know? But I don't, you know, begrudge this person, because, you know, she never had no element of creative energy like that she felt that she could contribute to it. So why not try to control mine, right? Which unfortunately a lot of original women will fall into. You know what I'm saying? Not just with painting, but with anything. And that's not right. But a lot of them gave up their dreams for whatever reason, due to the fact that they felt that maybe they couldn't do this or couldn't do that. See, now right there, that's a little too dark. I didn't want that as dark. So in order for me to break it up and make it lighter, I have to put white in it. Because white is nature's natural diluter. Anything that you want to make weaker, you put white in it. Go figure, right? Now again, I'm not trying to diss people who believe they're white, but if you're a person and you believe that you're a color, and something's wrong with you anyway, you're mentally deficient anyway. And that's not me, Aseer the Duke of Tears, judging you or telling you. No, this is the truth. Because a human being cannot be a color and a human being at the same time.
And you are babies at the small
Amour's in the pool.
They're dogs.
So let me get the white, okay. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna make this weaker. See that? make this a little weaker and bring this down. Me, I have Creole in me as well. Creole is a mixture of, you know, what they call down south French, you know what I mean, what they call Autochthon, and what is erroneously called Native American, when really we're talking about indigenous Moors or whatever, that are from the island of Haiti, But if you look at Haitian art, they're very vibrant. I love Haitian art. It's very vibrant. It's very classical. It's very open. It's very bold and bright color, you know. So I always like that. Some good, one of my favorite artists back in the days, which we all, anybody used to watch the Cosby Show, you would know about Jacob Lawrence. That's where he really blew up with that. You know what I mean? He wasn't a Haitian artist, but he had a lot of Haitian artist influences in his work. The study of art is a study of the human psyche in motion. You know what I'm saying? And the coming together, the only time color should be relevant in anything is when you're dealing with art. Some people just paint in black and white. I remember I did a whole series of black and white pieces. You know? Just like some people just painted one color predominantly, like Picasso went through a period of what he called his blue period, where everything he painted was blue. But Picasso was a Taurus, so there was an element of him that somebody told him one day. The reason why that came about was because Matisse, who was another artist of the time, basically said that, you know, you're great and everything, but you're the type of person you couldn't color in any other thing. You're not the type of person that could challenge yourself to color in one color. So he had a friendly rivalry with Matisse, and then thus did it. Another interesting thing about Picasso was the fact that the whole science of the so-called Illuminati with the dove was chosen as the image of Illuminati, and the first one was, thank you, King. The first one was done, the dove essentially was used as the symbol of the Illuminatus, based upon the first dove that was sacrificed by Crowley. But those people who started to follow Crowleyism began to use the doves. And the symbol for peace, then, to be shrouded under the so-called Illuminatus Crowleyite Golden Dawn bloodline, the first person to paint the dove for that symbol was Picasso. Now what I'm doing is a little mixed medium. I'm using acrylic and oil. This green right here is acrylic. Now acrylic is good because it dries very fast. You know, oil takes a little while longer to dry. Tell you a quick story of how art saved my life. And this goes back to 9/11. The night before 9/11, on September 10th, I remember I was speaking to my father, bless the dead, and he was calling me as he was driving down the BQE past the towers, and he said he was bugging because he saw all of these lights going on at the base of the tower as he was driving by, but he didn't know what was going on. Now the thing about it was, so my wife and I, CE10K, Selena Evers 10,000 Years, had a financial advisor on the 77th floor that we had to meet that morning of the 11th. But the night before, I got inspired to draw a comic, and in the process of that, it turned into me also starting a painting that I'll show in the next installment. I still have that painting. And we were up so late that we wound up oversleeping. So when we woke up the next morning, and we was like, damn, we missed our appointment and shit. Well, you know, because we was up so late. The queen was up with me building while I was painting, we talking and stuff, and she was like, yo, well, you know what, to hell with it. We'll miss tomorrow and we'll reschedule. Well, the reschedule never came because when we woke up that morning and went on and turned on the TV, we turned it on just as the fake image of the plane was hitting the second tower. So then we run upstairs to the roof, and we saw all the F-16s and everything flying back and forth. And we was like, oh, the day of judgment is today. So we started actually rejoicing. Not rejoicing at all the death, but the fact that today it seemed like that was the day. And then we kind of looked at each other and was like, wow, if we wasn't up doing art that night, we might not be here today. So again, art can save your life if you let it. Art also is an aspect that cannot be defined by anybody. 10 people may see you painting or see a painting or whatever and hate it. But then the 11th person that sees it may see something totally different in it and then has to have it. You know? That's the beauty of it. Because it's something that can only be indicative to the person that's doing it. Meaning nobody else can paint like me. And if you're trying to paint like somebody else, then you're not exhibiting your full habit. Unless that is your art. You have a whole element in the art community. There's a whole crime division for art forgeries, where you have people who grow up learning how to paint such meticulous energy into a painting to fool you to buy it and pay the top dollar for it and it really be a copy. So I say that to say that the element of art, again, is always in the eye of the beholder. It's always who's looking at it, whether they like it or not. Like, there's going to be people that's looking at this and be like, oh, that shit is whack. That's cool. I really don't care. When you're an artist, you can't care. Because if you care about what everybody say about what you do, you ain't never going to do nothing. Like what I told you with the story about my baby moms and all that. One day, when me and the Empress first started, you know, kicking it, coming together, I went to do a show in Japan, but I didn't have the rest of the bread to send the pieces over. So the Empress, being as gracious as she has always been in my life, said, "Well, I'll take the pieces to the mailbox, etc." At that time, over there on Park Slope, used to be on Park Slope, right where the American Apparel is, right there on Grand Army Plaza. And while she was in there, my eldest son's baby moms sees the paintings from outside. Now at this time, she's hating on the fact that I'm even in Japan. You dig? But she used that as a means to try to broker some sort of conversation with the Empress. It was like, oh, I know those paintings. You must be so and so and so. So then the Empress is like, well, yeah, who are you? She's like, oh, you're so and such and such. And then she used that as a means to say, oh, well, you know, I don't know what you have heard. You know how chicks do when they want to try to blow you up, but then don't look like they care. So that's what they did. And she really seemed like she was trying to befriend
Hey, everybody.
Empress. But, you know, that turned into some other steves. But I say all that to say that she wouldn't even known that any of that was happening if she didn't walk by and see my art. But my art at that time was so distinctive that she could see it through the glass window and somebody holding it. She like, oh, she helping him now. Let me go try to shut that down. You remember you did that. I remember. You know what I'm saying? Another thing as an artist, when you can, you know, when you're really into it and drawing stuff, you'll have people who feel like you just need to just draw for them. You need to paint what they think you should paint. Like I said, don't fall into that, man. Because what happens is you become a slave to somebody else's idea of what it is that you do. I always found it interesting that art, one of the anagrams for art is rat. And another anagram for art is tar. You know what I mean? Both rats being dark, right? Black melanated. And tar being black melanated. You know what I mean? I always find a correlation between that very interesting because I'm into etymology and stuff like that. Another fascinating thing about art itself is that it is indelibly uncontrollable. Half of the albums in history that are classic albums would not be classic albums had they not had a dope cover on the front of it. The artwork on your album is just as important as the music on your album. Now, what I see is that a lot of Moors and a lot of people who get into Afrocentrism or what they refer to as Afrocentrism or black liberation theology or whatever, they'll talk about the revolutionary act of everything else. But they never talk about the revolutionary act of actually creating art that shows and depicts elements of things that people believe or not. Like there was a artist in Sweden or whatever, this self-hating black man who did a whole bunch of pieces. His art was creating cakes that looked like big black mammies. And then what he would do is at the art exhibits have all the white folk that came to see it cut up the black mammies and eat them. Now there's a thing in the art community called shock art, where the more you debase yourself and the more you do something disgusting, the more somebody wants to buy it, especially these deviant crackers, because there's a lot of them that are deviants like that. So when you are willing to debase yourself and sacrifice your integrity and make your people look like coons and stuff, there's a whole market for you in that. I knew artists who were not homosexual, right? Brothers and sisters who were non-homosexual, who were actually acting like that so that way they could get more jobs. And I told them, I said, yeah, that's cool, but you're going to keep that up. One day you're going to have to, one day they're going to press you on it. And when you don't, they're going to know that you're bugging and they're going to blacklist you. Because art is also about integrity. It's about the integrity of the spirit and what the spirit is trying to convey through the image. What I'm trying to convey through this image is, I'll leave that up to you. And like I said, some people look at this and be like, oh, that shit is whack. And that's cool. I like when people have an opinion. Because what that shows is that you're still affected by it. You dig? The worst thing you can have as an artist is have somebody look at your painting and have no feeling about it whatsoever.
Wow, that's really good.
Like that?
Yep,
Thank you, King.
I like that.
Like this color? See how it's more pink, but it kind of blends with this? When I was coming up, one of the hardest things that I had to learn how to do was try to figure out like how to bond and mix palettes, like mix colors. I still sometimes have issues with that. Art is also a therapeutic meditation. It helps you work out things because while you're painting and doing this thing, you're thinking about all the other things in your life.
And if you keep doing it, you'll get better and better at doing something.
That's right, King. Like one of the issues that we're having now is the fact that we're going to have to basically put a lien on my building's management company. for racism, as well as denying our religious right of worship. Why? Because my home is my temple. So if you don't fix the things in my home, which is my temple, then you are infringing on my religious right of free exercise to practice. Especially being the fact that you know how I do. Any domicile I live in is registered in the name of the Moorish Science Temple of America Divine and National Movement. So that means then if you don't fix nothing, and I'm having Shabbat services on Fridays and Wednesdays and Sundays, and it's, you know what I'm saying? So you always want to do stuff where you prime the canvas and make sure that the canvas has enough whiteness on it, so that way when the pigment comes on top of it. So, you know, the color white does have its uses. Like I said, I like bright colors. You know? I like when things are very vibrant. Because in my mind, colors are the element of Allah's wisdom through the spectrum of light, through the angles, which means angels. Angles and angels are the same thing. That's why all of those dudes, those traitors that we call Freemasons, especially the black ones, want to act like it's okay. Want to act like it's okay to worship two masters and practice Moorish science in secret, but then deny it to their own family and stuff when it's pressed on them. That's why they have to go through such things with regalia, because there's the drag queen element to that type of stuff. Meaning that they like the pomp and the circumstance and the costumes, but they don't want to walk around every day like that. I was watching Red Fox today, and he was talking about a clip from Red Fox, one of his old stand-up bits. And he was talking about, you know, I was thinking about it the other day. How great was the creator? He said, let's talk about glasses. He said, how great was the creator to actually create ears to be placed exactly where they are. So that way when you wear glasses, they automatically can hook on a thing. He said, imagine if the creator had placed ears like on somebody's butt or something. That means anytime somebody would have to say something to you, you'd have to pull down your pants to hear them. And I thought about that. I was like, word. I never thought about that. So again, one can paint pictures with paint. One can paint pictures with words. One can paint pictures with action. Me, I grew up reading comic books. That was my first medium of direct expression that I really understood art and everything. And through comic books, I learned about quantum mechanics, quantum metaphysics, hyperdimensional reality, alternate realities, engineering, story composition. I learned more from comic books than I learned in school. I went to a school called Art and Design back in the days, where a lot of real famous and real creative people went. I was there at the time when I used to hang out with a guy named who became known as Sticky Fingers. Back then he was called Kirk Jones. As well as Mobb Deep went there, Kwame went there, me, Sticky.
That's really nice.
Thank you, King. Me, Sticky, Kwame, Mobb Deep went there. Mad people went on to rap. Went to A&D at that time through those years. This is the late 80s. This is like the late 80s, real early 90s. We're talking about 88, 88 to like 91.
Hey, Dad, I think used to do the some more colors right there.
Right here, right?
No, I'm saying like right here. Right there.
Okay, put some more color in. Thank you. Suggestions are good.
Can you put
He's actually right.
Can you put a little yellow and
I won't.
a little brown?
I'm gonna do something to it. See? That's what I said to talk about. Like, it's good. Like, suggestions are good. But don't take the suggestions so much to the point that it alters your original vision. So you have people who have different styles, you know what I mean? In terms of art and how that art is expressed and stuff, which is good. Sometimes I like to just mix it up. And like in this case, I'll use like in this piece has acrylic, watercolor, and oil all together. So now what I want to do is try to blend this out. I want to bring all of this down.
No, it's so dark. Man,
Usually I'd be listening to music and stuff like
I
that.
had a great dream. You should try to stop.
But I wanted you guys to be able to hear me. I don't want to talk over the music. One of the most revolutionary things that you can do as an Asiatic person is use your art to bang on the devil. Because it's the one thing that you got that the devil don't got. The devil don't got no creativity. All the creativity that these devils get nowadays is coming from Asiatic people. These same people that look at you and hate you for being melanated and having an idea of yourself and get upset when they see you exhibiting your culture. These are the same people that wish that they were actually a part of it in a manner where they can manifest it for themselves. So what they do is what the British did. Before the British came into India, there were no homeless people in India, in the nation of India. There was no poverty. Everybody was a king. Everybody was a princess, or what they call a Maharaja or Mahatma. Everybody was functioning like that. So what the British did was that they came in there and said the only way we're going to be able to break down these people is to make them think that their culture is not as grandiose and pristine as ours. And the more that they adopt our way of culture and way of life, the more they would reject their own, and eventually we'll be able to rule them. And then take all of the stuff that we've seen in their culture for our own. And it worked. The British was the one that set up the caste system in India. In terms of the Hindu shit and all of that, the Dalits and all of that. They're the ones that did that. Or I should say the brutish. We are all remnants of the empires of the past, especially when you look like us. And what your forefathers were then, you are today without distinction or design. You know what I'm saying? So as you can see, the composition is coming out where I'm bringing together a lot of different elements in terms of the refined aspect of the painting. You know what I'm saying? Linseed oil is very good as a thinner. I think it needs some purple. what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the purple watercolor without putting any water in it.
You're using watercolors?
Yes, I'm going to use the purple.
Wait! I want to see it! That's purple?
Yeah. Thanks, man. Okay.
That's actually kind of black.
It does, but it's actually purple.
I'm going back there.
Cool. Very dark. So that means I gotta put some linseed oil to thin it out. Now, in the next installment, we're gonna get a little bit more of it, and I'm gonna strive to, as we move forward in the piece, show you the evolution of it and how it's coming out. That's not gonna work. So what we do, right? Throw some blue in there. See, now what's happening is that the oil is working on top of the watercolor, and the oil and the water is starting to bead up, which is interesting. Okay, King. So what I'm gonna do is put more turpentine on it so I can spread it out more. And now what happened is that the turpentine is reacting to the watercolor and the oil on top of it. So it's causing this bubbles, but what it's doing is it's bringing out this very deep abstract, deep pigment in the middle. Okay, King. So what I'm gonna do now, okay, what I'm gonna do now to make it even more in depth is put some white acrylic on top of that. This be a good turn. See what I'm saying? See, and that gives it a nice wispy aspect. If I can bring it to the top of her head. Now I'm going to fill this in with another color, but it's not going to be this pink. It's going to be something else. I also plan to paint the leaves very green with gold accents. And then we're gonna get the molding and the frame down. Where's your towel? What I think we need is some more pink at the top. Now feel free in the comments to ask any questions about, you know, the artistic expression or whatever it is as we're going, because I want to turn this into something where people start to do different pieces and stuff, and then take pictures of them, because eventually we want to have a museum aspect to the temple where we can start to use art and stuff like that as a means of focus. Yeah, you're gonna see him tomorrow though. He's coming to your party. Now when it comes to smaller details aspects or detail stuff you want to do, it's always better to use a finer brush. Something like this. This would be a 2-inch. What I usually do also, whenever you use brushes, and you're going to have them like that, always get real animal hair. Don't use brushes with plastic bristles. Don't do that. Get brushes with horsehair. You don't need that. I'm all going in the house and take a shower. You don't need that. Sorry, just answering a call real quick. Okay. Yeah, so you want to use stuff that's more animal hair based or real hair. Horse hair or yeah, something real. Not no artificial. Like plastic bristles. That type of stuff is no good. Like I said, when it comes to like album covers and stuff, music and stuff like that, think about any album that you really loved growing up. And think about the cover of those albums. And you will always see that the color of the albums, the cover is what activates the energy of the album as well. This is cerulean blue. Sorry. So I'm going to put some of this cerulean blue on top to make the contrast. See that? Now the funny thing is, show you how people be hating. And you know me, I always use my personal experiences to let people know. Also to put people on blast, you know what I'm saying, sometimes, because I used to really support a lot of people in terms of their artistic endeavors, things that they want to do, whatever. And a lot of those people turn out to be real big haters. But specifically with the baby moms, both of my children are mad artistic. My baby moms and them never painted. They didn't have no